CodeRush AI with Mark Miller.
The Azure and Devops podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using the latest in .NET, Azure, AI, and DevOps. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. The show is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a full-service software architecture and engineering firm. Find them at www.clearmeasure.com. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and to run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. Today's guest is a returning guest, Mark Miller, and he's a multi-time C# MVP, and he blends software architecture with the cognitive sciences. He's the chief architect of the IDE Tools division at Developer Express, and he's the visionary behind CodeRush, which is a tool set designed to maximize developer productivity through intelligent design. And with nearly 4 decades of experience creating software tools and all kinds of other software, Mark's expertise really spans decoupled design, plugin architecture, and the nuanced craft of great user interface. He's also a top-ranked international speaker, and he's often a guest on many podcasts, and he's really known for unpacking complex ideas and bringing clarity. And he shares his thoughts on his Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CodeRush. And he was last on this show on episode 212, talking about the science of great UI. We'll include a link to that show. But Mark, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
This guy sounds awesome.
You are.
Wow.
You are.
Holy cow. This better be a good show. That's all I have to say. I want to hear what this guy has got to say.
That's right. The pressure's on.
The pressure's on. Wow. Thank you. That was a great intro. Makes me seem like I haven't. At first, you were like, when I heard you say, like, well, with over 4 decades of experience, I thought you were going to be like, no doubt this is an old guy, right?
Maybe I should embellish. With over 80 years of experience. Well, as we go back to the several centuries that you've been programming.
That's so funny.
There's lots of listeners who kind of follow you already and have heard you speak, but for those who are just getting to know you, what is it that's kind of captured your passion for the type of software that you work on and keep you going?
Well, I guess number one is because I'm writing developer tools, I always get to use what I write. There's never this disconnected state between a feature and that I create and a customer who uses it, and that I'm somehow also that customer who's using it, right? So because I get the benefit from the work I do, right, I get those immediate benefits. I've been like kind of obsessed with this idea of tuning the engine while you're in the race, right? This idea of making the product faster, making coding so I can do more, so I can create more high quality elements of the code with lower impact on my mind, right? Without it and my body physically, right? Yeah. So if I can get what I'm envisioning out faster with lower impact, that gives me long-term stability. In other words, I'm not destroying my body over the 40 years plus of sitting down at the keyboard. And it also gives me the ability to work longer during the day in a refreshed mode versus a I'm a fatigue mode, right? Where I've been like, okay, I've been concentrating and focusing all day and I just can't go any further, right? Being able to kind of shift that balance towards a cognitively lighter load and physically lighter load gives me some benefits as well, right? So I'm deeply excited about some of the stuff we've done so far for this latest release that's coming out, and I'm also really excited for what I'm about to do. So the code that I'm going to write in the next 3 to 4 months, I'm deeply excited about that as well. So I've always kind of had this idea of what's possible. What's right around the corner? What's right there? And what can I reach and grab? Mm-hmm. So that excitement has also essentially always been there, always kept me going for the most part.
Nice. And you've been working on CodeRush for a long time, but really when I look at your work, it seems like you've been constantly thinking about the problem of how people interface with computers, how people use computers, and then specifically from a developer perspective, and what the person does, what the computer does, how much the person does. Yeah. And that's all, user interface. It's the interface to the user. And I wanted to get you on the show because some people, use CodeRush or may have used CodeRush, but then they're using GitHub Copilot and they're thinking of that. And the landscape is very competitive out there. I think just in recent week, there's been some other announcements saying, oh, so-and-so has leapfrogged Copilot and then Claude has done this and so-and-so has done this, and they're all, jockeying for position. And so what's your view of all these, AI coding assistants in that space where you've kind of jumped in and started thinking about that?
Well, let's start by saying I think the Copilot agent technology that allows you to essentially stick an issue up on GitHub and have it go off and on its own branch and solve that issue, I think is absolutely brilliant. I love the idea. I love everything I've heard about it. I've not actually engaged with it, but I love that. There's some tooling that's coming out on VS Code that's not bad. It's kind of cool. It's got some voice interface, has the ability to iterate over what it's done. And I think that's also very cool. So we'll start by acknowledging those two spaces. Also, I think that it's maybe interesting for a moment to really to talk about what I do when we're focusing on this. I kind of deeply focus when we're on the user and on the software and the steps. And I'm focusing on everything from shifts in eye gaze, right? Where am I looking now? Where will I be looking, when I need to, when the UI pops up? So from that to amount of physical motion, right? I'm deeply focused and kind of go into this Zen state almost as I'm imagining what we're going to do. And I'm also kind of in a loop as well as I'm building. And I've often said that when I build software, user interfaces in particular, that I kind of sculpt it. I kind of create the basic shape and I'm looking for rough edges. I'm looking for things where it's not smooth and where it feels not perfect. And I just iteratively go after it. And what we've created in this 25.1 release of CodeRush is an AI tool that is both distinct from all the other offerings, and I'll explain how it's distinct, but also I think we really win in all of the user interface, in the user interface competition as well. So from the standpoint of, look, how can you get AI to help with the least amount of effort, the least and the fastest, right? How can you do that? I feel like we've solved that problem. And I can tell you a little bit about kind of that process and how we did that. If you want.
Yeah, so
I guess I'll stop there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to dive into that. You've decided that this whole code generation tool umbrella, this thing has legs. Give me your thoughts for the future. So in order to invest in CodeRush AI and the new features there, you're thinking, you know what? Yes, CodeRush needs to be here, and CodeRush needs to dominate and win at certain things. So, what does the future hold? What's the vision? Where are you thinking this is going to go? That it warrants the investment, which is considerable, right?
Well, okay, so we know that AI is relatively competent at writing certainly simple code. We'll start with that assertion. And we see glimpses of an ability to handle further in the direction of complexity. Right? We can see that it can actually handle things that are not bad, especially that are not that simple. I mean to say, and especially in areas where there is a lot of material that can be studied. Okay, so for example, in the area of C#, where we've got a lot of code samples that are out there, AI can be trained on that, and now we can guide it in a particular direction. Now, as we veer away from, and when I say C#, I mean C# under the .NET framework. Mm-hmm. So C# .NET framework, we've got a lot of code examples out there, so the reliability of what AI produces in that space tends to be pretty high. Now, if you veer away from that, you go into, maybe still stay in C#, but you go to frameworks that are not as widely used, you start to see variance. Mm-hmm. And another area you see variance is, and this is actually like a major realization that I had, but my whole life I've been like, we don't break code. We're not going to break code. We're not going to break code. Don't break code. Don't break APIs. Don't do anything, right? Mm-hmm. You make it so that if you're creating an API and you're going to update it, you never break it. Well, there's a new reason not to do that. And the new reason is that AI trained on an old version of your code samples.
Yeah.
And especially those dominate. And now you come up with a new way of doing this, which has actually happened to some major frameworks, right? NUnit, for example, has basically broken their API. And now you've got to, if you want to use the old stuff, you got to go with the classical assert, or the new stuff is you're going to call assert that, mm-hmm. right? But there are examples of both all over the place with using essentially the same packages, right? The NUnit package. And so as a result, in these places that are off the beaten path, or for example, in a place where the API has changed, AI can kind of be inconsistent in terms of what it presents. In fact, if like I say, in the case of like NUnit, if the dominant paradigm that's out there, the dominant examples are all against the old version of the API, mm-hmm. then you're going to get some example code that is targeting that. Yeah. And that may not be what you want. Yep. So in terms of what I see in the future, I think that the two big things that I think are going to change before we get to AGI. So AGI, let's say, is some point in the future, like a year and a half away. I'm not going to say when it is exactly, but sometime basically we're saying December is what I'm thinking. Year and a half from now, December 2026, something like that. Not going to call it to the day, but it's somewhere in there. And so between now and then, I think you're going to see two major things happening with regards to code generation inside. You're going to see the speed increase, and I think you're going to see the accuracy increase. And I think that's going to happen on its own in the space of the large language models. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to happen on its own. Now, with regards to the agent tooling, which is effectively what we've built inside of CodeRush, I think you're going to see boosts in quality as well. And I'm going to say not necessarily boosts in speed. Nothing we can do about speed, really little we can do about speed now on our end, but we've kind of, like, I don't know if I revealed this or not, but we've kind of already solved that. So we've already solved, we've got a big boost on speed against competing tools. And I'll explain a little bit about how we're doing that probably later on the show. But yeah, that's what I see is coming in the near future. We're going to get higher quality. The code generations are going to be faster, and as a result, I think what you end up getting is end up getting into this place where I think you're going to be managing multiple software developers today will be managing multiple virtual developers in the future, and they'll spin them off, and it's just going to be a cost per developer, and you might need to hire like 10 virtual developers for a short term, and you'll be managing those folks. But one of the things I've related to this is, this idea of vibe coding. I was reading an article that people were complaining that it took away the fun parts of coding, that basically now it was turning developers into folks who were just declaring specifications and then reviewing code, which is not as fun as solving problems, I think, which is kind of interesting, right? It's kind of an interesting, it's not fun at all when I think of that future. That's not a place that I want to be in.
Kind of like the 3D printer could take away the pleasure of hand whittling chess pieces.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah. So, but you still get to choose either one. The problem is when somebody else says, "Hey, you're now going to be reviewing code instead of writing it," right?
Yeah.
You know, and you're the lucky one because you're still around or something like that. Right?
So there's a risk of conversations delving into what might be.
Right.
And neither one of us will be able to prove any kind of statement under the umbrella of what might be. So putting that aside, let's talk about what is. Like, you've made some pretty cool things right now in CodeRush that developers writing code right now, I think you would argue, makes it fun to do it this way.
It does. It does. Yeah.
So what is that? What is that?
So we've basically created, and I talked about this a little bit earlier about this idea of taking a kind of a new spin on the integration of AI with the developer. So, unlike Copilot Agent, instead of creating a specification or a code issue and saying you go, spin off and you go work on this, we've got a tool that's in the editor with you, which is consistent with the CodeRush philosophy, right? The tooling is in the editor. Excuse me. Hold on, lost my train of thought with where else I was going with that.
I'll cut this.
Oh, I'm just kind of. Yeah, that helps with me. That our sound effect actually gets me back on track. All right. So, hold on, I'm back. So the tooling is in the editor. The ease of access is right there. It's essentially voice driven. So you're able to say, "Hey, I need help with this," or "I've got a tedious method I don't want to write. I want you to write that for me." What I like about it is you get to jump in and essentially invoke it, and then jump out, when you're ready to continue writing your own code yourself, right? And so it's like the perfect, for me, it's like the perfect AI partner. It is there when I need it, and it's not there at all when I'm just writing code normally, right? It's always just a keystroke away, though. All I have to do is double tap the right control key and hold it down to talk. So it's just a tap, and I start talking.
Nice.
And when I'm done talking, I release the control key. And so the other cool thing about this is as I'm talking, look, I might say something like I might say, reference an interface called I notify property changed.
Yep.
And that might go to AI as the word EYE and then separate words, notify property changed. But guess what? AI can take that and figure out what you mean from that.
Yeah.
So, and it's really good at that. Earlier today, one of my devs sent me a list of 51 different test cases that he felt we were missing from an initial check-in I put in for basically supporting an aspect of this.
Yeah.
And so I took the list and I copied it to the clipboard. And then I double tapped and I said, "Hey, I need a whole bunch of test cases like the ones I've already got in here for the list of the specification list that's on the clipboard. Can you build those for me?" And it built 2 out of the 51. And I took a look at the response back, and it said, due to time to length limitations, it couldn't give me all of them. And because each one of these test cases were big, in fairness.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, fine. So I took them in groups of 5, 6, 7, or 8, clustered together, copied them, and repeated that process. And it went through and built about 63 new test cases that were all complex and used AI for that. And it was excellent because to do that by hand would have taken me probably 2 days, I think, to do. And I did it instead in probably about 20 minutes, maybe something like that.
How long did it take you to read the resulting code so you knew that it was proper test cases?
That's an excellent point. Well, each test case is run, right? So I'm running each test case, and a lot of them are failing, right? So I'm going through and I'm checking each one hand by hand. So I still have to go through each one of those test cases, but it takes a lot less time to spot check, especially in this tedious stuff, because with these test cases, they involve 3 strings, and each of those strings contains source code in the string. It's a before, it's an after, and it's a what are the delta change, essentially, in 3 different strings. So I can see anything that fails. I actually want them to fail, right, the first time anyway, because anything that fails is great. Anything that passes immediately actually takes more work to look at, right? Because you're like, wait, did it pass because it was poorly written, or did it pass because everything's okay? So those take more time. So I'm still going through those because this is all something that just happened this afternoon, a couple hours ago. So, how long does it take? It's not long, right? Each test. Now, some of the tests caught problems. Like one of the problems we caught, which my developer was good to anticipate, was our ability to make changes to event accessors or event adders and removers for an event inside of C# that were explicitly implemented as part of an interface. So we caught that, we found that, and so I had to write some code to fix it. But even that process, probably the total process for that one test and fixing it was less than it would have taken to write the whole test case from scratch myself, I think. It's pretty close. It's pretty even right there. So there's definitely cost savings or time savings involved in this.
So far, in that example, listeners would say, hey, I've been using GitHub Copilot for a while, and I use Copilot to do exactly that. So then the next one, okay, in your vision with CodeRush AI, what's new? What's the push ahead? It's like, Copilot doesn't do this, Claude doesn't do this, and we are.
Okay. Well, in terms of what you let me address the first part of the question, because I kind of want to challenge that a little bit. I think that Copilot doesn't do what we're talking about with the ease and that we're talking about here. Because when I talk about double tapping and then saying what I want and releasing, right, there's a couple things that are happening here. One is the response comes back faster than Copilot.
Okay.
So I don't have to wait, right? That's number one. Number two, the response comes back and is modified, folded into my solution automatically. So I don't have to copy and paste. I don't have to activate another window and come back. Does that make sense? So I say, for example, hey, this method isn't working, and it says, here's a new method right here. Or I say, I want to add new methods that do this, this, and this, and it says, here they are. Or I say, I want to create a data grid on this XAML form so I can show all the users, and I don't have that class yet, so create that class for me, and I want it to have a property like first name, last name, and birth date. And I want it to have an isAdult method that returns true if the person's over 18 years old. And I want test cases for that. Like I could say all of that if I wanted to in one piece, or I can do it in individual parts as well. And regardless of how I do it, the changes are integrated everywhere throughout my solution. And then I get a viewer, a navigator that allows me to see all those changes. So instead of saying, here's things we can do, and then you click copy and paste or scroll, try to see what the difference is in the generated code and go put it in there. Everything comes out faster, and it's all undoable with a single undo. So if you don't like what happened, you can just hit undo and redo. So that's the first part of the question. I wanted to just challenge that a bit. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. There's probably, we need to get into the secret sauce, because the Copilot listeners would listen and say, well, I've been using GitHub Copilot mode, and it does that. The mode that was released at the Build conference in May, that you don't have to copy and paste in. It just kind of modifies your solution automatically. But regardless.
But is that really true, though? Does it modify all of them, or do you have to click on each one to say it? Because in my version, you have to click on each individual change. Is that true or do they make multiple changes at once?
So I personally spent multiple days with Copilot, with the latest version of Copilot, and I was upgrading an old training sample, old in Hibernate mappings to Entity Framework and with accompanying tests, and it's jumping around the whole Visual Studio solution, and it gives me a stack of changes that I can click through, and it's like the git diff left, right, okay, this would have changed, and I can keep them one at a time, or I can hit the keep all button, and then it's like, okay, and then I'll tell it, okay, do a git commit to the branch and push, and then it'll operate that command line, and it'll craft the the git message, and it'll push to the branch. Now it's not 100% accurate, so I am having to go back. It's like, okay, this was missed, this was missed, this was missed. That's probably the secret sauce, because you have to monitor it a lot because it gets stuff wrong.
Interesting. Yeah. In the version that I have, which I assume is the latest version, it is slow. And the changes are required. Each one requires a click to say, go do this change right here. There's the
integration. It's like ask, edit, and agent. That's in the drop down. And we have to license and pay for it. The free version doesn't have the little agent option in that drop down between ask and edit and agent.
Yeah, I've got the paid version, but I'm wondering if maybe I have an older version. I should probably go check that. But because it sounds like what you're describing is way better than what my experiences that I'm having right now. So that's interesting.
Yeah, but the next to the drop down where you select if you want GPT 4.1 or Claude Sonnet 3.7, there's another drop down where I'm looking at now. You select either ask, you control what to apply, review, or accept, or agent. Copilot applies the code and builds and fixes bugs and more. And this one, it'll run the compiler and make sure it compiles. And if it doesn't, it'll try again. And I've instructed it, after you compile, run this unit test project. And if any of the tests fail, then, give another shot. And then it also uses not only a compile, but also the running of the unit tests to, before it declares that it's done.
Okay, well, that is way better experience than what I've been playing with. So there must be some difference between what I'm looking at and what what you have. But I've seen this upgrade as well, though, over time. So it is automatically upgrading. But we're talking about GitHub Copilot Chat, or are we talking about another tool?
It's GitHub Copilot Chat using the edits,
right?
The edits thread, and then in the drop down, instead of using the ask option, it's the agent option.
I know. Where's the drop down?
At the bottom where you type in the prompt.
Yeah, I see it says GPT 4.1.
Yeah, it's
for
right
the models.
next. It's a second drop down to the left of where you would select GPT 4.1 versus Claude Sonnet or the others.
To the left of that, I have a button that I click and says create unit tests, document C# code, explain sharp code.
So if you don't see the drop down where you can select between ask or agent, then there's a different option that's not enabled on your computer.
All right. Well, I've got to go find that and take a look at that. All right. So anyway, everything I said, ignore that except for maybe the speed.
Well, no, it is slow, and it doesn't get it. It hardly gets it right on the first try. It's like hey, this is a lot of goodness. It's already saved me a lot of time. Okay, but we're not done. And it's like the cattle prod, the AI cattle prod. It's like, okay, come on, you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that depends on, again, like what you're doing. Most of the time, the results that I get back are really good. And the quality of those results are, I think, impacted by context.
Yeah.
So context by what else is around, what other code is nearby, what are the references that the project has, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, why don't, and this is a segment on the show for the audio only listeners, you might want to jump over to the YouTube channel for the video, because we're going to show screen just for a segment, a small demo that, of course, won't be on the audio, but just want to tell you what's going on. That.
I'll tell you what's happening, and so we can do that. Okay. All right. Let me switch to that view right there.
Perfect. And I'm seeing just like you are on your Twitch channel.
Yeah. All right. So I've got an open file here. There's a couple things that we can do. I think let's start by creating a new class. So I'm just going to tap and hold down the control key, the right control key, and I'm going to say what I want. I'd like to get a new class called customer, and I'd like it to have a first name, a last name, a phone number, a birth date, and an ID that is of type GUID. And the GUID is going to be initialized whenever I create a new instance of that user class. And I'm releasing the control key, and on the screen it says thinking and done. At this point, so in the time I said thinking and done, the code has been generated, it's been added, and it's been it's been added to the project.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we can see it right here. If we, in the bottom right, there is a navigator. I'm just moving this up here and you can see, it says on the left, all my changes. There's only one there, just the addition of this class, and I can open up the difference view if I want to. From here, I can close it. I can click a button that says edit prompt, which means I can go back and physically edit the text if I want to that I just did, or I can choose undo all. So we'll go ahead and undo that. We've got our customer. Let's go over to our main window. Let's do this. Let's copy customer to the clipboard and we'll go to our main window and let's do this. I'm going to double tap again on it. I've got an empty, just an empty WPF window here with the dock panel inside. And I'm going to double tap on the control key and hold it down and say, I'd like to create a data grid here of customers. In the code behind, I want to initialize about 50 of those customers with realistic looking data. And I want to data bind that to the, I guess, the item source of either the data grid or the window. I'm not sure what. You figure that out so that I can see those when we run. And now I'm releasing the control key. It says it's thinking. So this is a more complicated, I didn't tell it. I had clicked customer on the clipboard. Let's undo it a second so we can, let's see. Maybe it might work. Let's just run it because there may be enough here. I'm just going to hit run and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think we're going to be fine. But I want to do something.
In the solution.
Yeah, here it is right here. So you can see this. You've got now, it's not very creative. I think I said I wanted realistic looking data.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a first name of first one and a last name of last one and an email of email1@example.com. So it's not really giving me realistic looking data like I had asked for. This kind of maybe falls under that category that you were talking about, Jeff, of, kind of hitting it with the hammer, right? A little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also, wait. Oh, I was going to say it's just auto generating the columns right here. It's not quite what we need here. Mm-hmm. Let's go look at our customer. Did we verify the customer had the new GUID? It does. Yeah, there it is right there. So you can see that's there. Let's do this. I think I've got customer copied to the clipboard. Let's do something with that. Let's look at my code behind.
So you're not typing in a prompt of any kind. You're just hitting the hotkey and you're speaking into the microphone, the prompt.
That's right. Okay, so in my main window, okay, look at what it did. Because I didn't tell it about the class customer that I had on the clipboard, it created a new customer class for us. So we don't need that. That's not what I want to do. I think it made sense within the context of what AI understood, but I want to take it to that next level. I wanted to work with that customer class I already have. So I'm going to undo that right there. We'll stop everything. Now we've gone back to that dock panel state that we were back at the beginning. Nothing is on the form. Let's try it one more time. Hey, I've got a class named customer on the clipboard, and I want to create a data table here to show rows of customers. In the code behind, I want to initialize about 50 of these customers with realistic data inside of them. All right, so we're trying it one more time. It says it's thinking.
I think this speaking into it, that's a killer feature. Absolutely killer feature.
Yeah, it is. There's a big difference between typing a sentence and saying it.
Yeah.
Right, in terms of cognitive load. So now you can see it's kind of interesting. Now over here in the navigator, we're seeing multiple changes. We see in the main window XAML, the element's been added. It opened up the dock panel. The dock panel was a self-closing tag. It opened it up and inserted a data grid inside of it. Okay. Looks like we've modified the constructor, adding a call to load customers. And we have a new method called load customers. I've got a list here. I've got a red underline on it. I can't quite see what it says. Non-generic type lists cannot be used with type arguments. Does that mean we're missing? I think we're missing using system collections generic, probably. There it is right there. And that's it. So we can close that down. And now we see the load customers is similar to what we had before. First name, last name. Let's run it and let's note and see what's going on in there with what we're running. We're seeing that it's initializing some fields. We've got our birth date field back. We didn't have that when it created its own, but now we can see it's actually using the fields from the customer class that I had on the clipboard. Mm-hmm. So I started in my XAML. I copied I copied the other class to the clipboard because I wanted to talk about it and I wanted it to work with it. And it made changes to both the XAML and the code behind as well, right?
Nice.
I've got this obnoxious now in the grid. I've got a couple things that I'm not liking in it. One of them is that I've got the ID on the left is this GUID. I don't really need to see that. So I'd like to hide that. I've also got these thick lines. Notice the lines, these dark lines in the data grid or the data table. They're too dark. It doesn't look professional. And I want to drop those down. So let's work on that. The other thing I want to do is I want to change this initialization method here. This load customers call, it's not following the intent of what I said. I want it to have realistic looking data. So I'm going to change this method. I want to change the method. And I don't want to do it by hand because it's tedious to do. Let's just get it started and then I can go and modify afterwards. So I'm going to do the same thing, double tap and hold on the right control key. And I'll say, hey, this load customers method, I wanted to create realistic looking customer data. That means the first name should be chosen from a selection of valid, typical first names, like populate a list of maybe 20 of those. And the last name should also be selected from that group. And maybe these methods should be in a helper class, like sample data helper. And and that's good enough for now. Just do that. All right.
And so make them all Latin last names.
Oh, okay. We could do that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about AI is it's very, very helpful. So now we're here. It says it's thinking right now. And we'll take a look at what we get out of the whole thing here.
I want to see Marcus Aurelius in the grid.
So now the method, now the method load customers, now says customers is equal to sample data helper dot generate random customers, and it's passing in the number 50. Presumably we're creating 50 customers now. So we've created this sample data helper like I asked for. We've modified this method right here. And the navigator helps us go out and look and we can see what's going on here. If we go out to the sample data helper, we can now see there's a list, a read-only list of first names. With James, Mary, John, we should add Mark in there so we've got a chance of making, it's
Mark
Marcus we're adding. We want to make Jeffrey's dreams come true. And what was the last name you said? O'Reilly or something?
Marcus Aurelius.
Aurelius. I'm going to get in trouble for not spelling that well. I don't know how to spell it. We'll try that. And let's run it. Let's just run it. Getting a spelling error on this. So we're running it now, and we still have the problem of the ID. I haven't fixed that yet, but now we've got first names and last names that look much better. Okay. Let's hide the ID property. Okay. In fact, maybe before we do that, actually, let's look at one other thing. Let me run it one more time. And I mentioned that we've got these thick lines here that are making this kind of hard to read. Let's try this. Hey, can we convert all of these controls over to their DevExpress equivalents? So it says it's thinking.
All right, we're going to have to tell the listeners how they can get their hands on this and try it out.
Okay, cool. So it's done. It says invalid markup. So the first thing I see is invalid markup, but it's okay. Don't worry. Right? Mm-hmm. It's invalid markup because we need to install some NuGet packages. Over here in the navigator, you see it says NuGet packages install if needed. And it's got a list of several of these here. We can just click on these and get the install going on this. I can click on them in any order and it's going to install them one at a time until they're all in there. So it's just installing devexpress.wpf, devexpress.wpf.core, wpf.gridcore. So it's just grabbing those in and we can see those installing and the progress of that. Notice, by the way, Jeff, notice the invalid markup is gone and now it's showing me the DevExpress control up in the XAML, right? In the XAML preview. And I've done, I've so far in this demo, I've written no code by hand that I can think of except for hitting Control Dot once to add a using that was missing. right? It's pretty fast. And this is what I'm talking about, that enjoyable state of being able to, kind of say, oh, I need this now, help me out. All right, so all those packages are installed. Let's run it and we'll take a look visually and see what we think about it. Oh, wow, check out the field names it put in. It did name, because it interesting.
First name and last name together?
So the field names, it converted over where it didn't know what to do because it didn't have the data it needed. So it just gave me name, email, and phone. I'm going to take that customer class and I'm going to copy it to clipboard again so it knows what to do. I'm going to copy it to clipboard and I'm going to say, hey, can we change all of these grid columns to match the fields for the customer class, which I've copied to the clipboard? And now see what it does.
And it nailed it.
Nailed it. There it is right there. And see how fast it is? It's fast, right?
It was fast, actually.
Okay. And so go ahead.
Let's, as we kind of got to wrap up here because of time. How is this out already where the listeners can try it out for themselves? Is that an upcoming release? What's the status and what can listeners do?
Well, I think by the time this airs, it's out. We're essentially out today or tomorrow, something like that. That's kind of where we are as I understand it. I guess not tomorrow. It's tomorrow's Saturday as we record it, but Monday probably, something like that. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I think do the hotkey, talk to it, have it lay out the code, install NuGet packages. That's pretty sweet. And yeah, you are a brave soul jumping into the AI coding agent race, which is certainly a race. But this is really cool. And as we kind of close out here, is there any final thought that you would leave with the listeners who are kind of really interested in this stuff?
Well, yeah, let me say one more thing that I didn't get a chance to show, and it's AI find. It's the ability to search within a file, which is useful for complex things, or maybe you want to look for security issues, something like that, right? Yeah. Are there any security issues inside of this, right? Or I'm looking for any controls that don't have a style associated with them. And so you have a very quick and easy way to navigate through all of those responses back. So you can ask for changes or ask not for changes. You can ask to find things based on what the code does, which is also a very cool tool. And it's all similar. It's all the same entry point, right? You just speak what you're looking for. I'm looking for this. And it gives you back the answer.
Nice.
So the question was, what do I suggest? Any last words for people who are interested in this? Well, I will say this. Look, I use Copilot and I use ChatGPT and I use this technology in CodeRush, right? I do all of those things. I think all of these have different strengths. All of these tools have different strengths in different areas. I will say, though, that CodeRush is free. In order to make this work, you'll need an OpenAI API key. And to get voice to work, you're going to need an Azure Cognitive Service Speech API key as well.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay.
But my voice bill per month is like about less than $3, I think. Something like that. So voice, it's very little for incredibly accurate text to voice to text.
Nice. Wow, the future is awesome as a programmer.
It's not bad. I'm loving it right now. It's awesome right now.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thanks so much for coming back on the show. This is fun, and yeah, we'll have to schedule another one without so much time this past and check in because man, this whole space and this tool, man, these things are going fast. Yeah,
it is. Buckle up because it's not going to slow down.
Awesome.
Right? Speed of development is not slowing down right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on and being a guest and sharing with us about CodeRush AI.
All right. Thank you.
And until next time, dear listener, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure and DevOps podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Visit our sponsor, ClearMeasure, at www.clearmeasure.com. And on behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.